Okay, someone has a question. Say, with this unique need for effective communication, can this be delegated? Okay, so yes and no. Let me explain why. I mean, I will give you a scenario so that you can understand. I mean, this is again from experience. So when you're dealing with a small project, when you're on a small project, let's say an organization that has like, say, 50 employees, maybe 100. Okay, let's even say less than that. Let's just 50 to 100 employees. All right. The communication burden lies on you as a project manager because you're dealing with a very small people. I mean, the size of your team probably will not be more than 5 to 6 people. And that is inclusive of your project sponsor and your project project owner. So let's say there are about 6, 7 people, right? And much of the information you're going to be sending out is probably what you've already pre-agreed with the project owner. There's probably no change manager because of the size of the organization, and what you're doing is a very small project. But when you're dealing with an organization that has like 1,000 employees, 100,000 employees, 50,000 employees, there's a need. Any organization that you have more than 100 employees, right? There's a need to have someone who is in charge of change management. I guess this is where this question is going. You know, can we delegate communication to someone else? Since it's really very important. Yes, you can, but it depends on the size of the project, and it depends on the budget and the resources that are available. I've been in projects where I have to wear the 2 caps, both as an organizational change manager and as the project manager. In fact, including quality control as well. So that's why we're encouraging you to, if you come for the core class, there is a lot of things you will not see on textbook because they're coming from the field. We're sharing things from the field. So there are situations where you even get to some of these big organizations. They have the money, but they don't want to delegate anybody for that. You know that is a risk already, but you don't want also the project to fail. And so you have to adapt. You have to adapt, look at the frameworks and see how you adapt to be able to deliver the project, because they're all looking up to you. They are looking up to you. So one of the key skills you need to have is adaptability, not only on templates, but on the frameworks. I think I've said it like 2 or 3 times now. The frameworks you see out there are for you to adapt to. You don't take them and just dump on the client. It doesn't work. In fact, it never has worked. Okay, you need to customize, but you can only customize when you understand, you are aware of the environment, aware of the stakeholders you're dealing with, aware of the political play that is going on there, and about the work culture. These are things you need to know about, and this is what helps you to succeed. Technical documentation, those are like, they are good. It's really important because it helps us to do audit after we've completed. It helps us to see where things went wrong. It helps us to see, repeat the same process and get the same result. That's what documentation does. But the bulk of what helps you to succeed is this people management aspect. So, okay, yeah. So let's look at this one. So this is a typical template on your stakeholder analysis and management. All right. So in that, identifying your stakeholders, you need to know them by name and know the groups. So if you have unions, that's a stakeholder group. If you have an individual, if you have like 2, 3 executives, you can group them as execs and find out how they align in terms of their preferences or what their interests. Usually at the senior level, you usually don't have conflict in terms of interest regarding the project, but sometimes you do. Yes. Now, this may sound strange that a company will ask you to come and be a project manager, and you find out that the VP and the CEO are not on the same page, but they want you to do the project. We will tell you the secret how to navigate this in the core class, but those scenarios exist. It happens. In fact, in one of the projects that where I was playing the role of organizational change manager, for government entity, we had this political play there too. But when you come for the core class, I will share some of the insight to it for you so you can understand how to deal with this kind of, but they exist. Never think that when you get on a project, it's all going to be smooth and sail, just by the book, we just do it and we'll work out. Hey, thank you very much for coming. You did a fantastic job. That's not project. It doesn't work that way. So stakeholder group, you need to know their name, group them by yourself, because you're not going to get there and see a group, oh, this is a stakeholder group. No, you have to figure out where they belong. So if you have 2, 3 executives, that's an executive group. You have union, that's the one group. You have employees that like we'll call them process owners sometimes. The people who actually do the work. That's another set of people. All right. So you need to know them, know the department they belong to, know what their roles are, know if they have any role to play in the project. Gauge what their interest level is and how much of influence they have. Okay, on the issue of influence, because for interest, I think that's pretty straightforward. But on issue of influence is this. Let's say the client has its own project management office. You come in to do a project. The client has its own project management office. And these guys, they are the ones, the PMO, they are the ones that design or determine the standards of documentation, not you. You're coming with all your skills. And then you come up with all those, your bling documentation and everything. And after you're finished, they say, oh, no, we can't accept this. This is not the standard. And you are like, excuse me, I'm giving you best practice. I understand, but this is the culture here. This is the way we do it. And then you say, this little fellow, I'm going to bypass you and I'm going to go and talk to your guy. Then you bypass him, the person, and go to meet their supervisor. You get what you want, but suddenly you find out that you're not getting the documents you need anymore. You call for meeting. They send out the invite deliberately late, and you're wondering what's going on. And then you're matching there like the boss in charge. I am demanding. You're already failing. So one of the things you do on project is never to bruise anybody's ego. And that's one of the things this is doing for you, stakeholder identification. That's what it helps you. Yes, yeah. So somebody asks a question, say, if the organization has a PMO, doesn't the PM report to the PM, to the PMO? Yes, you're right. But look at it this way. It's not just about reporting. The whole thing is not about reporting. It's about working out a relationship that helps you to deliver the project. Remember, you are the one delivering the project. That's why they called you. They could have picked somebody else from there and set out project manager, but they need expertise from outside. So when you come in, you need to understand the environment you are in. You need to ask for certain information. That's one of the things you do when you're doing your stakeholder analysis. So PMO can technically become one of your stakeholders because they are in charge of a whole lot of stuff that you don't. In fact, we did one client project for one client, one of the banks back home in Nigeria. And we had this problem. They had a PMO. And there's always this struggle between the PMO and the project team because we want to do the project plan in a certain way. The PMO wants to do it in another different way, which we know is not very effective. But this is what the client wants. So it's about balancing. It's not about just, if they're leading you, if they're going to lead you to hell, you follow them to hell. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about managing that relationship and striking a balance to be able to deliver your project and knowing what the role of each party is. That's what we're trying to do with stakeholder analysis. I don't know, Vivian, if that answers your question. Okay, you've identified what their goals are, the most important, because sometimes they have a lot of things, and then you figure out how would they want to contribute. How do you get all this information? Is by talking to them, interviews. Sometimes you may decide to call some of them in a group. Some of them are really more important from what you've observed. You call them into single, schedule a time and have one-on-one conversation with them. Best way to manage them is something you also have to agree. You don't have to, just come up with something without having a feedback from them or input from them. All right. Okay, then you decide how am I going to engage them? What kind of communication? Is it email? Is it brown bag sessions, or do we have lunch once a week with the whole team, with them, or it doesn't matter? How do I meet them in their office? Where? Okay, that's basically it, and then that helps you also to gauge, their level of buy-in, because this is really key again when you do stakeholder analysis. Their level of buy-in. How do I determine that? Is by having these conversations, looking at their level of influence on the project and the kind of feedback you've been getting from them that will help you to determine whether I need to modify the plan I have. And mind you, whatever engagement method you have adopted, it could be modified. If you see that something is not working, it's time to go, take a step back, review what it is, and find out what is going wrong, and then update. Okay, it's perfectly fine to look back at a plan that you have. Same applies to a project plan as well, as you all know, for those of you who have actually been practicing project plan. So I will take questions now quickly.
Okay, Franklin Ozumba asked a question. He says, how do you identify stakeholders? Is it through personal experience or stakeholder workshop? Franklin, I think you joined a little late because he went through the process, what you do. I think even people suggested how you would identify stakeholders. You have documents of existing project through the organogram, walking through the process, understanding who the roles that are involved in that process. That can also help you identify that stakeholder. But my actual comment is on this spreadsheet here. So you can actually take the title of this spreadsheet to begin to come up with questions, like a list of questions you would ask your stakeholders when you get into those meetings, right? So the way to understand their peculiarities, their communication preference, you have to engage them to know this. So for example, some of the sample question I could put down looking at this template that we have here showing you is, what is your most important goal? That would be one question I would have, right? I may not ask him directly I won't ask a direct question to understand his level of influence, but again, from when I talk to other stakeholders, key stakeholders of the project, it will give me a sense. I could also ask him how do they want to contribute towards the project? What is the best way to engage them? What's the best way to communicate with them, to reach out to them? And that's how I begin to learn of their communication preference and how they want to be engaged. Is it weekly? Is it via email and all of that? I hope that kind of sheds more light on maybe possible when you on the job, when you pick up this template, how you can begin to elicit information to populate it. Understand that a PM is not a magician. He cannot know all this information. He needs to engage stakeholders to elicit this information and be able to do his analysis and plan how to manage the project. So don't have it in your head that as a PM, I can sit in my corner and know everything about the project and manage the project successfully. No, you need to know your stakeholders, build a relationship with them. And that was Mr. Jonathan's emphasis, building relationship. And for those of you that were part of our earlier class today, we talked about that. Before you get into the rigors of the work, try and build a relationship, one-on-one, get to know your stakeholders as much as possible before you begin to delve into the work.
Okay, that is perfect. That is awesome. Over the years, one of the things that I quickly realized was relationship on projects is at the heart of your success of your project. In fact, let me tell you to our listeners is some information about organizations. You'll probably not get it from the boss. It's not your boss. You're probably going to get it from a business user who will tell you actually what is going on in that organization. And that's why you need to build those relationships, because they said if you want to know what the boss is doing, go and ask the security guard. so that's the way that, and if you want to know the way an organization is really the real temperature of an organization, ask the employees. The bosses and BP can tell you all the fine stuff and that, but if you really want to make sure you're not, you're not caught with one foot back, talk to the business users. Your first stakeholder is the person who hired you. So the person asking the question, the person who hired you, and the person that this is the person you're going to be working. You are the PM on this project. This person, he is your primary stakeholder. He's the first person. He is your key to finding all the other people that have interest on this project. Are we following? So that person they introduce you to, who is always like hand-holding you, trying to show you this is the head of this is the head of that. He's your primary stakeholder. Once you, from that individual, you can start spreading your, you're creating a spider web kind of network to link up all the other stakeholders, and that will give you a broader picture about these stakeholders and the groups and the groupings. And then you can now start planning how I'm going to engage them, get the information I need in terms of their level of interest. Like Oge said, you're not going to ask them, are you really powerful in this project? You're not going to ask that. But by talking to a lot of people, you will get a sense of how powerful this individual. For example, if someone tells you, why didn't they put a CFO on this project? But she's the one that approved all the money. But they didn't put her on the project. They just want her to approve the money. Trust me, that CFO is high risk for you. Even though she's not on the project, is not making any direct contribution on the project. But guess what? If she does not sign those checks, your project is going to stall. So you need to get her on board. Find a way to manage her. Make her feel important, or make him or her feel very important. And once you do that, I'm telling you, it is people in the organization will be wondering, how did you get past through this woman or this man to get your check so signed off so quickly? This is what I'm talking about. This is practical now. This is not book. This is what you need to understand. So your primary stakeholder is the person you're going to be working with directly. So if you're introduced to the CEO or the project owner directly, that is your primary contact. And that's from there, you start building your web network and connect all the other stakeholders. Any other question?
There's a question here that says, why is the BA not part of the stakeholder in the project? See, that is not an exhaustive list of the stakeholders. Definitely your BA is a stakeholder because the PM and the BA work hand in hand a lot. So the BA is definitely a stakeholder. And there's something else I want to say. In addition to how you identify your stakeholder, Mr. You mentioned something about having business analysis skills, very important for a PM.
That's right.
And one of the skills that have helped me identify stakeholders very well is process mapping. You can never go wrong with it. So you are a PM on a project. You need to, a project will typically have a scope. And if you zero in on that scope, it has to do with a business area, a business process, right? When you map out the business process using the swim lane technique, not just the flow chart, it tells you who does what at every point in time. So that shows you all the stakeholders that are impacted by that process. So it could be, you could have spoken with that key stakeholder and maybe intentionally or oversight missed out a stakeholder. You can then, through your process analysis, which is another level of validation of whatever word of mouth information you get, identify people that you think may be impacted, and then you can ask questions to validate. Again, I've worked in organizations where a stakeholder knows that another stakeholder is impacted by the project, but because of political reasons, wanted to sideline that stakeholder. Now, if you as the PM fall into that trap, at the end, sometime down the line in the project, you will be in between a big...
that is true. And guess what, who they're going to blame? You.
Oh, yeah.
It's you. Because you were supposed to identify that risk when you did your stakeholder analysis. But you didn't. In Igbo land, there's something we usually say. We say when a chicken gets to a new place, it stands with one leg until it's sure of his environment, then it puts down the two legs. The idea is this: you need to monitor your surrounding. You need to understand what is going on. Ask questions. They hired you. They believe you're an expert. Ask the questions. There's no go area. Just ask questions. Engage people, and then you will get, you will get the information you need. Because one thing you don't want to happen to you is, and don't think when we're talking about this political thing, you think it's only in Africa. No, here in the US, they do it. I mean, I've talked to some people and they were complaining about the kind of politics that is going, how they want to edge them out because they don't want to get into be part of the onboarding of the new application and stuff like that. You don't want to get caught up in that, okay? Because it has a way of rubbing off on you, because you remember you're going to go leave and then you're going to make a reference to that project. You see, so that's why risk management is another key skill. Remember I mentioned this earlier, but we can't exhaust all of this, in this session. This is just to give you a taste of what the core training is. They are practical. This is not book. This is practical experience, so that when you get this job, this dream job you're looking for, you know exactly, intuitively, you know exactly what to do. Even before you start looking at all the templates, you know exactly what to do. With your sticker note or whatever, you just, I know, I need to talk to this person. It would be so easy. One of the challenge we usually have is because we don't have this experience. So when we get to an environment, it's like, we're asking certain questions that our client is thinking we should not be asking. You see what I'm trying to say? But if you're asking the right question that the client expects you say, oh, this one is smart. He knows what he's doing. You see what I'm saying? So you can ask questions, but if you, depend on how you ask them, can make you look like a professional or a novice. And what we're trying to do there is to clear up that novice thing away from you so you can come in as a professional and get the work done.
Okay. Somebody is also asking a question about knowing business analysis before venturing into project management. So some people have business analysis training, knowledge or experience is indispensable for any role at all. That's my opinion, for any role anywhere. If you, whatever you do and you have business analysis and skills, it makes you stand out. Now for a PM, because you typically, basically you're trying to enable change, of course, as a PM, and there are different techniques and processes that are involved you need to apply. So definitely knowledge of business analysis helps. And like I said, I gave the example of process analysis. Don't think, oh, that's a business analyst business. As a PM, you should know how to map a process. You should know how to talk to stakeholders, get them to describe the process they do, and be able to map that process as part of your analysis work. A project manager does not only manage, he does some level of analysis to do his work. And that was the skills Mr. Akachukwu showed when he showed all those slides. And you know, the good thing with our September cohort is that we are running the project management training and the business analysis training side by side. And the last 6 weeks, capstone projects, the BAs and the PM are collaborating. So you get to, if you are a BA, you get a sense of what it seems for you to work with a PM, what the role of a PM would typically be. That doesn't mean it's not cast on stone that a PM would always do it. Different organizations have their different processes. But what we'll try to do is to make sure that those core activities, deliverable, a PM will typically do on a project, he owns that. And then the BA owns their own. And of course, the BA reports their deliverable. You know, you get to understand the relationship between the BA and the PM, which I'm not sure you can get anywhere. That is what we have on offer for you this cohort. I hope that answers the question about business analysis. So you can get to learn some PM while you are paying for BA, learn some BA while you are paying for PM. So
it's a key skill. You don't have to be certified, but you need the knowledge. It's really important you need it, because sometimes you get to a project and the reason why they brought you to the project was to help them that the project owner is telling you that the project sponsor said he will not sign off. Now, this is a little bit political, but you can see in between the line. So the project owner is saying that the project sponsor said he will not sign off on the budget for the project because he needs a business case, because the board said that they need that business case as part of regulatory requirement or whatever. They don't know how to do it. You don't know how to do it. What do you think is going to happen? You wanted to hire someone else, again, even though they hired to come and do a business case. You see what I'm trying to say? So as a PM, you have to bring out value beyond just being a PM. That's the point I'm making. And the only way you do that is by having all these kind of skills that it's not like you're an all-rounder, but you can understand a business environment. And that's what business analyst skills gives you. It helps you to be able to like dissect an organization, understand the business architecture of that organization, understand the different layers of the organizational structures and the processes that they execute, and the systems that support it. Once with that, it's easy for you to narrow down to the specific data sources and the kind of data you need to prepare a report, because that's what you do. I mean, in summary, as a business analyst, that's what you're trying to do, because you're trying to help the business navigate. In a project, you are just trying to help execute an initiative that they have defined already, which has a beginning and an end. But with that business analyst skill, you're bringing a whole lot more value. You see, this is one of the reasons why when you're finishing a project, they may say, we want to retain this individual. It's not just because you executed it, but there were other value. And trust me, there were other value you delivered beyond just that you deliver the project. And that's what they want to, that knowledge is what they want to retain. So this is one of the reasons. So you want to be able to, like, you get on a project and they are still at the initiation phase of the project. They have not done the business case. They have defined what the objective, but they have not done the business case in terms of return on investment, for example. What is the actual saving? What is this business? I mean, this whole initiative, what is this going to save for us? You see, you must be able to do that analysis and show them numbers that shows this is the value. Like, for example, when you do process mapping, there's KPIs for processes. There are time limits on processes. There are time savings. What in terms of financials? What's the what do you call it? Financial savings for the business in terms of the time you're saving. You don't just say, oh, I just save time. Save time for what? Yeah, you save time. So what? It doesn't make any sense to me as a business, as a CEO. I want to see numbers. Okay, which takes me to the other thing. Remember, I said something about domain expertise. You can't be jack of all trades in terms of all the industries. You have to choose where you want to be. So if you want to be in technology, Scrum certification will be very apt for you, besides your PMP, plus the business analysis. If you want to be in manufacturing, and where they're doing a lot of process improvement and what they call it, production line optimization, cutting down waste, Kanban will be, or Six Sigma. I mean, I hope we're understanding what I'm trying to explain. So that you don't all, end up, you do this, you do that, but it depends on where you want to go. Some of you want to stay in a particular industry, but if you want to be able to do all of them, fine, why not? Go ahead and get all. But what this training we're doing for you, what Oge has brought on board for us to do for you, is that by the time you're done with this, our core training, I'm telling you, when you speak, they will think you've been all over the place and been doing this, because you're having a conversation that shows that somebody who has gone through the process, not training for certification. That's different. Okay.